I've been creating content on YouTube since I was 12, and I built this YouTube channel to just under 100,000 subscribers. Since then, I've worked on Gordon Ramsay's channel, in a TikTok agency, and as Ali Abdaal's YouTube producer. In this episode, Gwilym and George wanted to hear my story and ask me what lessons I learned that you can apply to your own YouTube channels.
Jamie, I've known you for a couple of years now, but I still don't know that much about your whole origin story. I know you built a gaming channel to about like 100,000 subscribers when you were a teen. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I've been on YouTube pretty much from like the first year it started. I started to watch a lot of YouTube content around 2005, 2006. And I had a few YouTube channels like back in the day when I was at school. They were like, magic tricks, using software to like have a lightsaber, all of these kind of things that you would do as a kid. And a couple of friends of mine, they started to play Minecraft at the time, which was like a few years before Minecraft really took off. And they were just recording themselves, having fun in the game and uploading it. And I thought, that looks kind of fun. Like I'll make a couple of videos on that. And so I grabbed a PS2 mic, which was just like a webcam that had a microphone on the top. So I had no microphone to record with. That's all I had access to. There was no camera. It was using like Hypercam 2 on my computer that was super laggy. It was like an awful first video. I remember sweating and feeling extremely scared and, just having anxiety of my first ever video. And that just started this long process of me making YouTube videos. After a few years, I got it to at its peak around 95,000 subs before I kind of let it die. We can talk about that in a minute. And there was a lot of things that I learned in that process. And it kind of just, took me down this rabbit hole of YouTube content creation, learning about titles and thumbnails, idea selection, sponsorships, making money, pretty much the whole thing with YouTube. And I guess you could call it my career, to this day has sort of all been about YouTube. And it all started back there when I was 12.
So at what point did you realize, wait, this is more than just me messing about? I could be onto something, there could be money in it, or there could be fame and recognition in it. Like, what was that transition?
Yeah, so I started off doing it just because it was fun. And I think that's like one of the most underrated things that a lot of people nowadays I don't think really have. Is they typically start it with, I want to make money, I want to become famous. I started it because I enjoyed the editing process. I liked making thumbnails, I liked recording. It was quite fun. I couldn't wait to come home from school and do it. There was this one time where Call of Duty Black Ops was coming out. And they, like back in the day, like 2009, 10, it was really big to watch Call of Duty videos, and they would always announce what the guns and the perks were for that game. And I made this video in Sony Vegas, which was like the editing software of choice back then. And it was just like a black screen with white text that would just come up saying, these were the perks that were coming and what they did. These were the guns, these were the attachments, like literally nothing special. And I put it up and I think I got like 50,000 views. And then one day I was like messing about in the settings and I was like, what's this thing? And it said like I'd made like £30, which is probably like, I don't know, $40. And I was like, I just didn't really understand it. I was like, money? Like I made money. And then I saw it was from this video and I was like, oh, I can make money through this. And so like that was quite a nice benefit to realize that actually the thing that I was doing for fun could actually bring me some money. And at its peak, I think YouTube channel was making about like £700-800 per month when I was about 15, 16, which is pretty good, right? And there's like a couple of things I wish I did differently now looking back in hindsight that I didn't particularly do.
What were some of those things?
Yeah, so one of them is that this was me making a video like once every week, every 2 weeks, and I wasn't very consistent despite the fact that I was getting pretty good views on my videos and seeing growth. And when I started to make money, like my dad saw it, he was like, you should be making more videos. Like this is quite a lot for your age and what you're doing. And because I was so young, I'd never had a job. I never really understood, the value of a pound. When you're like, oh, you are earning £500 this month for 2 videos, 3 videos. it just never resonated with me. I didn't really understand how much that was. And so I never was like, I need to make more videos, which is really like looking back, it should have been like, okay, take some of that money, give it to a video editor who could have edited that, which when I look back now, a lot of the big YouTubers were doing that, right? Like that, they were sort of ahead of their time, but it was not really spoken about like it is today. And so it never felt like an option, didn't know how to do it. It's the idea of paying someone to edit the videos just was never there. I did it myself. And obviously being able to outsource that to make more videos would have made me more money. And I would have got to the point that a lot of the other big guys around that time were doing, which was daily videos. And like I said, to make £500 a month with very few videos was kind of insane. So if I'd got it to the point where I was doing 3 videos per week, I would have potentially had like life-changing money. And it probably would have resulted in me not going to university and doing other things in my career.
So tell us, what were the branching paths? Like what happened in reality, and what would have happened if you had stayed on that YouTube path?
So I was making good money from it. All of this money just sort of went into a bank account and sort of just sat there. Because I wasn't someone who spent things. Like I said, I didn't really understand how much money that was. What obviously could have happened is that I could have made YouTube like a full-time job at the time. You know, I had many friends who I was sort of growing up with on the YouTube channel, sort of in that world. So there was someone like Mr. Williamo, who's my friend Will. He used to make Minecraft videos and we would collab. And that was like a really good thing back in the day, was collaborating with other YouTubers, you know, other Minecraft YouTubers specifically, because they would come and watch your videos and vice versa, and you'd grow quite quickly. I had another friend, TCTN Gaming. We were all roughly around the same subscriber rate. And so we were like going up at the same time. And then I went to university because my understanding was like, especially at school, you're basically peer pressured into it. Like if you don't go to university and don't get a degree, you know, you're going to end up, you know, minimum wage, never having a job, no one will hire you, basically putting fear into you, and it's absolutely not true. And one of my biggest regrets in my life is going to university to study media when everything I learned in my first 2 years, I already had picked up those skills from having a YouTube channel from early on. And in that time, my YouTube channel essentially died because I wasn't uploading videos. And the Will and Nenad from TCTN Gaming, these both went on to have like million subscriber YouTube channels. And like I said, we were growing at the same pace. And so I believe like if I had not gone to university, realized how much money I was making, got an editor and was more secure with sort of that as a potential future for the channel, it could have been completely different with where I went in my life.
So I'm curious, off the back of that, like, you know, you've gone to university, you realize the channel is kind of stagnating because you're not uploading to it. I'm curious to hear about what lessons you learned from that YouTube channel when you were making it, and, you know, potentially things you can still apply today, and why you didn't think it was worth going back to that channel and, you know, with those lessons you'd already learned and trying to kind of rejuvenate it. Was there a reason that you didn't do that?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that I learned when I was growing that YouTube channel, and a lot of it was around idea selection and the titles and thumbnails. So with YouTube, when you have a small channel, you typically want to rely upon trend jacking, other people's brands, because they typically already have an audience, whereas you don't. So in the Minecraft world, you would always get a lot of views if you use mods, and mods were essentially like these third-party coders who would make something and then you could attach it to the main Minecraft game. So an example of this was there was a SpongeBob mod where if you use SpongeBob in Minecraft, he would be a character in the game that you could interact with. There would be Bikini Bottom and stuff, and so I understood obviously that SpongeBob, very popular kids cartoon. Minecraft was a kids cartoon. It was in the best interest to make a video on that. And I made a video on that, and it got so this has 1.6 million views. And this was from 11 years ago. And the title was Minecraft SpongeBob SquarePants mod. And the thumbnail was just the huge Minecraft logo with SpongeBob on the front. And like this back in the day was like enough to get people clicking. And when this would happen quite consistently, you realize actually I should just be trend jacking all of the time. And so, you know, at the age of 16, I was looking at like which movies are coming up. And there was like a Wolverine video that was coming out. So I did a video on the Wolverine mod that got 1 million views. Then I went on and did other superheroes. I did Hulk, I did Superman, I did Batman, where you could be this character in Minecraft. And all of these had like over 500,000 views. And so very quickly you learn, okay, I can create series out of these videos, all about the superheroes with a specific like style of thumbnail. And you would find that people would binge watch them. And I did one on Indiana Jones. And like, this was really how I grew my YouTube channel. And it got to the point where then I could actually just make videos on whatever I wanted. And I would still get pretty good views because then people liked my personality. And they wanted to watch for me.
So with that realization, what was the reason you didn't go back to the channel?
So I did go back in 2017, which was, after like a 2.5, 3 year gap for when I was uploading consistently. And there was like a couple of things that happened. One, I personally was not that interested in gaming as much anymore. So I just sort of didn't vibe with it. I did try and upload a few videos on the channel at the time, which was Fortnite, which was like the popular game. I didn't particularly enjoy Fortnite. The audience I had built was obviously mostly around Minecraft and a few other games. And so the views were never quite what they were. And it just felt a little bit discouraging of like, okay, I've got to like sort of build up this entire YouTube channel again. It just felt like a bit of a chore. And I felt like I had more interests in general that were around like technology, tools to make YouTube videos, the actual growth strategies of YouTube. And I'd actually gone on and started working in a YouTube agency, managing Gordon Ramsay's YouTube channel and a few other big ones. And I just thought, this is where I'm most interested now rather than gaming. And so I started a new YouTube channel where I would upload videos, in my spare time. Now that I had like a full-time job, that was really my main focus.
Wait, so backing up, that channel you're talking about is your current channel, the Jamie Whiffen channel?
So Whiffen is the gaming channel, and Jamie Whiffen is my current new YouTube channel that has a lot of stuff, but I've privated a lot of them from like 2017 to 2020. So kind of like focus more on the YouTube stuff rather than tech.
Okay, so how do you go from studying media at university to managing Gordon Ramsay's channel and working in a social media agency? What's that trajectory?
Yeah, so once I graduated, I came back to London. I applied for a lot of different jobs, and there was this company called Little Dot Studios where they basically will go to large corporations like Viacom and essentially say, hey, we will buy, or not necessarily buy, but like rent, lease the sort of the brand of the YouTube channel of like these TV programs, and we'll build a YouTube channel for you, and we just get a very small cut of the AdSense. And so they would do this with a lot of big YouTube channels. I used to manage like Super Nanny, if you remember that TV show, Gordon Ramsay. I used to work a little bit on the Graham Norton show. And then I had like these things called hub channels, which were just like these channels about a particular topic. So I had one that was called Nurture, which was all about pregnancy. And I was like a 21-year-old dude. And I learned so much about, what it means to, get pregnant and look after a child in that process. And so, that's what I did with that YouTube channel. And then there was another one called Only Human, which was focused more on people who would have certain like eating disorders or issues with their health and how to improve it and get over those issues. And so those were like the channels I would work on. And I did that for about 8 or 9 months until I quit. That was sort of what I did in that time period.
How would you compare what you learned at the social media agency versus at university? Like, what was the learning like?
I learned almost nothing at university. I do consider it a large waste of time. If I could go back, I absolutely would not do it again. I honestly have nothing to say about university. It was just mostly people who were very outdated on everything that was happening in social media, teaching tools that they didn't really know how to use themselves. And so I think the lesson you can take from that is actually doing the things yourself is important. And you will learn far more through doing it yourself rather than reading textbooks or listening to other people who are outdated. I think YouTube is one of those things that if you try and grow on YouTube, you will pick up so many skills with graphic design when it comes to, learning how to use Photoshop, compositions, color awareness, the psychological aspects of designing a thumbnail. And then you can extrapolate that to video editing and everything that comes in there with storytelling and hooks and things on screen and pacing, and that helps with public speaking because you've got to speak to others. Like if you really go in and try and learn YouTube, there are like 1,001 different skills that you pick up, and you will learn so much more through that trial and error, looking at YouTube videos to try and improve in those areas than you would going to university.
I suppose then the question that comes to mind for me is like, if we accept that university was not the one in terms of like improving you as a YouTuber or a creative person generally, do you think it was necessary for you to have the earlier experience doing your own thing? Like I'm thinking from for our listeners, for people who are getting into YouTube, is that, what's the difference between those two periods? Which was more valuable? Was one necessary to be able to then get the other, if that makes sense? Or like where should people be focusing their energy?
Yeah, so I think my advice to someone who would, let's preface this by saying we have an entire YouTube video of how to get into the creator economy. And I did touch on this a little bit. I know if you want to learn more about that, I'd recommend you go and watch that episode because I went far more in depth there than I will here. But basically, if you want to get into the creator economy, having some evidence that you know what you're talking about, or you have a portfolio of thumbnails you've made or videos that you've made, will help you get that low paying first job straight out of university in an agency, within a city. For me, having my own YouTube channel, having grown it, having gone to university and then learned, some of the things that were, useful in that agency, that was sort of all I needed to kind of like get my foot in the door. A lot of these spaces won't necessarily take you if you don't have that. It depends. Like if they see something in you and your character traits and your behaviors of like wanting to grow and obviously take a low paying job. But I found that once I was within the agency, there were people who were much older than me that would constantly ask me questions and then use that to impress their boss. So I won't name names, but there was like one woman who joined. She was like a freelancer. She was around like 35, had been in marketing all her life, but was asking me basic questions like, how do you upload to YouTube? How do you do tags? And I was like, hang on, and I was like helping them because I was, a helpful person. So I'd helped them. But then she was someone who's very open, and she would talk about, I'm going to go and ask for like a pay rise and this, that, and the other. And she was already on quite a lot. And I was there thinking, hang on, like I'm getting paid like quite a low amount because it's my first ever job and I know quite a lot. And it never sort of like sit right with me. And so going into future jobs, I always sort of remembered that and valued myself much, much higher beyond people who were just older than me. Just because they're older didn't mean that they were better. But when you're 21 and you're straight out of university, you don't really understand the politicalness of, the workplace. You're a bit naive to all of that.
I think I'm just like, in that case, maybe this kind of moves us on to the next bit. So it sounds like you learned a lot in that initial phase. You're growing your own channel. It seems like you didn't learn very much in that agency. Maybe you can correct me if that's not fair to say. It seems more like they were leveraging your skills rather than it being so much of a reciprocal, like you were getting money for it, sure, but you weren't maybe growing as much. Would you say then, like when was the next time in your trajectory that you started to learn valuable lessons about YouTube again, compared to that early stage where you were kind of learning all the ropes and everything? Would that be when you started working with Ali, or was there some other time where you started learning things again?
So I would say what I learned most in that agency was around the copyright side of YouTube, how corporations were then starting to move into the YouTube world rather than just being creators in their bedroom making things. And I learned quite a lot about ads, ad spend, because we also would work on Facebook, not just YouTube. So I learned a lot more about like the technical behind the scenes stuff rather than the creative stuff. And so I did find my time there quite valuable in learning the opposite side of the coin, which I think still helps me to this day with doing both. I moved on to like a TikTok agency, and there I learned quite a lot about short form, which obviously did help me with YouTube, but it wasn't specific to YouTube at the time. But there I learned about sponsorships, how much people were making, which was just like ridiculous money through sponsorships, and what it meant to create a good short form video that actually gets clicks and makes brands money. And then after that, I left and I did go and work for Ali, which is where I did learn, quite a substantial amount about YouTube again.
Yeah, so I'm curious, what what does one do at a TikTok agency? You're not making the videos, so are you in charge of sponsorships, or what was your role?
Yeah, so I joined Tim Armu's Fanbytes around 2020, 2021. And this was around the time that TikTok was really starting to take off. And so it was a really exciting agency to be a part of. And the company was growing quite quick. And there were a lot of different departments. The area that I was in was around essentially being given a brand from the sales team. For example, McVitie's. And for those of you who are not from the UK, McVitie's is like a biscuit brand. And what we would do is we would essentially take a look at the brief of sort of, did they want brand awareness, where the goal would essentially just be, how can we find as many TikTok influencers as possible that can talk about this product and get us a lot of views? Or would they want sort of a conversion acquisition style of marketing campaign where we actually would get the TikTok influencer to put a link in their bio, drive their audience there to click and then buy the biscuits as an example and give them some return on their ad spend. So there was always sort of like two different paths that we would go down, and that would really influence the strategy that we would use. But essentially we, Fanbytes, they had this internal software that they have built, which had, a database of, I don't even know how many, but like thousands and thousands of TikTok creators, all sort of tagged down into their particular niche, their audience size. And you would go through and try and find people that you think would be a good fit. And you'd move them along in the columns, sort of like a Kanban sort of looking system. And then you would send that to the brand. They would approve which influencers they like the look of. And then you'd reach out to them and then negotiate with those influencers different rates. Some people, it could be £250 for a single video. Others, it would be like $20,000, $30,000 for like a single 60-second TikTok post, which, yeah, every time that would happen, I would always be like, is this real? Like, are we actually paying this person $30,000? Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, some of the budgets that we would have.
What's going on in Jamie's mind at that point about finances and working in the creator industry? Because you had been a creator, now you're in an agency, you were seeing other creators getting paid these crazy sums. What was going on in your mind?
Yeah, because I mean, for me, it was like a very different world to long form YouTube content, but it made me realize, okay, there's a lot of money here. And I don't know, I think at the time I was like, oh, this is probably just because of COVID. And as a result, TikTok, everyone was at home, everyone was watching TikTok. And so a lot of brands were spending their money there. But that all died down. Ad budgets continue to keep going up. So it was very much like the platform was shifting. And this really brought to my attention how much money creators can actually make on TikTok. And I knew some people who were on YouTube, and there were similar figures being thrown about then. And so, yeah, it kind of just stuck out to me, like the creator economy is like this big industry, like, and it's going to continue to grow. And it still has to this day in 2024. And, even now, I think we can all look at it and say, well, it's definitely going to continue going in a positive direction. So, yeah, for me, it was just like a bit of an eye-opener to sort of see some of the numbers that were being thrown around and thinking, okay, maybe I should, revisit the content game. Because more like a background thing, I realized I didn't particularly like working in an office 5 days a week, very long hours, having to do the commute. I kind of valued freedom, autonomy. And I knew that a lot of that has got to come from yourself, having your own business. And obviously for me, my own business that I wanted was a YouTube channel, something that leveraged the YouTube channel. And that's when I saw Ali put out the job description essentially for a YouTube producer, which I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I had gone through PTYA, Part-Time YouTuber Academy, 8 or 9 months before, and found it very valuable. And I knew Ali had a lot of those values of like wanting freedom, not wanting to be stuck to a job. And so I kind of looked at it a bit like a chessboard and was like, that seems like the correct move to make. Ali's like my favorite YouTuber. He knows all about these things. I'm going to learn a lot from working with him and through being around his team. So I applied, went through that interview process and got the job with Ali. And that's where I met you two.
Yeah. So I remember literally the first time we met was at the office in London. I think it was a writer's meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a meeting with all the writers and the producer, who was Jamie, and we were all sitting down, shooting around ideas for new videos. And it's I think my first impression of you, Jamie, I can't even remember. I think I was just too focused on, oh my god, scripting. Am I getting the right thing? Am I coming up with the right ideas? Is it working? So yeah, almost my model for operating in that kind of environment was like a university model. If you come in with your ideas and your kind of tutor is there and the other students are there and you're all sharing ideas and like seeing what the tutor says. So I'm curious what was going on in your mind at that table, Jamie.
Yeah, so I think that was when I first met you. I remember being in the office on my first morning, typing away on the laptop, and in came George. We spoke about Edgar Wright's movies. That's one of my first thoughts of like I'd watched Last Night in Soho, the movie like the night before, and we spoke about that. And yeah, that day for me was like a difficult one because about 5 minutes before I walked into the doors, I got the news that my grandmother had passed away. And so it was like, oh, wow, this was, it was like a shock. And I was like, I can't cancel now. I'm here. And so I very much had to just, go into the office. And so, meeting you guys and sort of being thrown into the deep end in that meeting, it was like 9 a.m. meeting. And Ali wasn't there. It was just, all of these script writers, and I think most of you had joined like 2 weeks before I had. And so everyone was fresh and new. And I hadn't really had anything explained as to like what the process was or anything. And they were like, everyone just looks at me and like, take it away. And I was like, I just hadn't had any sort of context given to me. And I remember I was sort of, spitballing ideas. And then Ali came in halfway through and he kind of like helped to steer the direction of that conversation. That first sort of day and week was, a little bit messy in terms of like, what are my roles and responsibilities? And obviously that cleared up over time. We obviously learned quite a lot in that process of refining that script writing system, moving you guys around to different parts of the business. There was a lot of change for all of us during our time with Ali. Just in that process, learned a lot with them, a lot with the teams that Ali would sort of, get mentors and people in to speak with us to help improve our skill sets. It was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed sort of my time working with him.
Going back to your grandma dying just on the first day and like the show must go on, I feel like maybe it's like that in a lot of industries, but in the creator industry economy, it does feel like stuff happens, but you have to carry on anyway because there's this upload schedule and everyone is super aware of time. And I feel like that might be a common thing in creator teams where, I don't know, something bad has happened in someone's life and you just kind of roll on with it. You don't want to be curious.
A bottleneck in a way,
right? It's like
holding everyone else. I just need to do my bit and keep
everyone
going.
is a bottle. Yeah, everyone's a bottleneck, a potential bottleneck. So what did your I kind of know the answer, but what did your role grow into being? What were you doing specifically day to day at Ali Abdaal Limited?
If I could tack onto that question, and then is there like a moment or a specific video that you are sort of the proudest that you worked on while you were there?
Yeah, so the role changed quite a bit because I was a YouTube producer. I was sort of like the overseer of the entire sort of process. I worked with the script writing team, the editing team, the filming team, and then also with the guys who would review our analytics. So there was quite a lot that I sort of did over that process. Some might argue too much. But in that process, a lot of what I would like to do was focus on the packaging. Like I think I was definitely known as being like the thumbnail guy. I made all of Ali's thumbnails, for that year pretty much. We did try and outsource a few of them sometimes as an experiment, just see what happened. No one sort of got the brand right. And I think Ali really trusted me with understanding his sort of brand and sort of like the values that he has as a person, what he wants his content to embody. And so I would typically know what types of titles and thumbnails to create for him. And so, yeah, I would spend a lot of time in that process, reviewing the video edits, giving comments on frame to the editor team, working with the scriptwriter team, as you both know, as you were part of it. And yeah, like it's hard to kind of like just say this was the thing I did when I worked for Ali. I was a bit of a jack of all trades. I was sort of like in every step of the process. In terms of like what I think was my favorite video, I'd say it probably has to be the productive skincare episode. That video, I think it's got 8 million views now. I think it was the one that the process that I wanted to sort of integrate into the business, where there was always like a lot of friction with sort of me having free reign to implement what I thought would work well on the channel. Multiple chefs in the kitchen, a lot of mindset changes from Ali week to week, which made it a little bit hard to kind of trial things, to actually experiment and get that result. And I think, the skincare video was one of those ones where I wanted to always have titles and thumbnails before we made it. That was one where that happened and we knew we had a solid packaging concept, and that performed very well for us. I knew that script writing and having Ali read from a teleprompter, from the times we did it, resulted in way higher retention, which resulted in a lot of views for us, due to eliminating things like riffing, going off on tangents, using examples that were, specific to being a doctor, but now Ali's audience was much, much bigger. A lot of that audience didn't relate to being a doctor or a student, a med student. So they would tend to click away. Like, this is the stuff that me and the analytics guys noticed. And so script writing was our way of kind of putting Ali on tracks a little bit and say, this is where we should go. And we did this video and it got 8 million views. Other videos that we did got millions of views that were teleprompted. But we never really had the opportunity to refine that process because Ali didn't like using a teleprompter. He wanted to sort of riff. And I can understand that as using teleprompters myself. It's a tricky balance, but I never really felt like we had the time to work on that and refine it. But that video, I think there was a lot of things that I really wanted to implement into the business that would work well there. And, this was sort of in my final week within the business that we sort of worked on these videos. And, after I left, a lot of these videos did come out and they all performed really well. And so I was like, we nearly had that system sort of down.
So yeah, what was your business model after leaving Ali? What were you gonna do? What was the plan?
Yeah, so the plan really was to launch my own YouTube business. I think that at the time, working for Ali, there were a lot of external people who we'd have calls with who were obviously interested in helping Ali grow. And so I got a bit of an insight into the tools people were creating, the services that they had. And when we were on the Wales trip, I remember speaking with Gordon, with Ali, with Barv, around launching my own YouTube consulting business. And, it was a bit of an idea at that time, wasn't quite sure. Barv became my first paying customer. It was like £50 a call. And we spent some time working on that. And then once I left, I sort of really went deep on finding these clients. And yeah, within like a couple of weeks, I like tripled my monthly income, or doubled. It was something crazy like that. And that's when I realized, okay, this is like an actual business. And, Ali still wanted me to make thumbnails and titles for him. So I would still be going into the office as like a part-timer, for like 4 or 5 months after I had left. So to me, it was kind of like the best of both worlds to be able to still work there part-time, but also have my own business consulting and realizing, wow, this is actually, a viable option to have my own business. Because in the past, I'd always done the mistake, which was I need to grow an audience and then sell them a product. And it was always, let me sell them, a digital product, or let me try and build a brand that was not around me. And I always neglected services. I don't know why, but I knew a lot about YouTube. I knew a lot about thumbnail design, but at no point did it really occur to me, let me become a thumbnail designer. Let me become a YouTube consultant. Let me, do any of these kind of things. And so to see such quick growth in a growing market for me was like a huge positive. It was very encouraging. And, I'm about 2 years into it now, and the business is still growing really well. So it's been a great pivot.
It's cool. And I think it speaks to this wider thing where I know that the temptation as YouTube continues to get bigger and more people start to realize how accessible it is to work within it in some capacity or to get into it themselves as creators. I think your approach and the way that you went from, this full-time job to kind of like a foot in your business and a foot still in Ali's business, and then, eventually to like, fully on your own business. I think that's a really nice approach to it, and it's a lot safer, in quotes. And I can't remember the exact figure, but I think Dickie Bush, I think the way he talks about it is a prolific online writer. For anyone who isn't aware of Dickie Bush, is that even when he used to work at BlackRock, I think he was making shed loads of money, but he didn't ever want to go all in on his own thing until he was making, I think it was 2 times his salary. But it's like, whatever it is, it's like, it's a lot more than you would think. But yeah, I like there being some degree of kind of mediation with this idea that like go all in on your side hustle. And actually sometimes it's like, okay, or test and validate this idea first. And then when you realize, oh, this is actually a viable business, then you can sort of gradually move towards that. I think that was a good move.
Yeah, I think for most people who want to grow a YouTube channel today, well, I'd say most people who like book a free call with me, through my website, or they book an hour slot with me, a lot of them, when I ask them like, what's the goal? What do you want out of this? It's almost always, I want to make money. I want to have a business. I want to have control of my time, the usual reasons. And they always want to do that by, I just want to, leverage AdSense. I just want to get loads of views and live off AdSense. And I do think that's a really risky because, third party, that being YouTube, controls your income. And I do think that a lot of people have certain skills. If your niche is around, how to cook, for example, or if you're a plumber and you're making tutorials about this kind of thing, like there's a lot of services and digital products that you can build that will make you far more money than AdSense would, far sooner. I do think you will see a lot of people start to trend more towards like smaller audience sizes, but making a lot more money in the future. I think, the last sort of 10 years, it's all been, how can I maximize views? How can I get the most subscribers? And I do think a lot of people tend to just fall into thinking that's the goal. And it's quite difficult to do that for a lot of people. And as I said, if you're relying on just AdSense, like it means you have to like get a consistent amount of high views every single video to have that high income. And if you want this to be something that lasts decades, that's quite difficult. And so, yeah, for me, like I was always sort of in that mindset when I was younger of, let me start affiliate marketing and I'll build up a YouTube audience and then put these links in and people will go click the Amazon link and then I'll make a couple of cents, and I'll build that up, or I'll start a drop shipping business and build that up. And like, it's just like so long. And, all you can do is just offer services. And I think I fell into the trap of watching a lot of YouTubers who would always be like, oh yeah, you need a side hustle and you need multiple forms of income. And you don't want that to be attached to your time. Like that was always the biggest thing. And so I would always go, I don't want to go into services and offer social media marketing services where I would, write tweets for someone, or I would post to their Facebook and create graphics for them, because I'm leveraging my time and you can't scale your time. These things that are true once you already have like an established business. But I wasn't willing to do that because I thought, well, I need to do things that have passive income and all of this other crap. And that just led me to wasting time for years and years. And the second I offer services, up, my hourly rate goes and I'm suddenly making thousands of dollars. And I'm like, hang on, that's a lesson I've learned there. That's something I could have been doing for years. And so I always sort of like quiz people now when they come on these calls with me, like, what's the real goal? Have you, thought about it this way? Have you explored these options? How can you use your audience, whether it's small, to leverage that? Because, yeah, I think a lot of people get into this, I need passive income, I want to make money through AdSense. And it's just the wrong way of thinking about things.
Yeah, something I've been thinking about recently is so the magic of YouTube. What makes people really love YouTube? And in my experience, it's not only, I can watch these amazing productions, like Mr. Beast or Michelle Khare, but it's also, I can go on and I can find these really specific people talking about really specific things that I get so much value from. And I can't believe this channel is almost tailor-made to the exact thing I want to know about. Like, I don't know, specific photography or a specific type of, I don't know, Mongolian cooking or whatever it is. And it sounds like that's what you're getting at, Jamie, that people can go down those paths and offer services. That's potentially a better route than fighting for like the top 1% of the views.
Yeah, I think you summed it up much more eloquently than I did.
So just stepping out of the chronology for a second, if you look back at all the Jamie eras, so like the early YouTube, going to university, the agencies, working with Ali, which of the kind of lifestyles did you enjoy the most, or when did you feel most comfortable? And where did you learn the most of all those times?
I would say excluding the current era, because obviously this is the best, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I would say the two areas that I do at my own gaming YouTube channel when I was younger. Yeah, it's really the thing where I planted the seeds and learned a lot about this whole process. They even allowed me to start working with someone like Ali. And I'd say that second one was Ali. I think it was a great company to work with. I loved my time there. And, like if this business completely, crashed and burned, working with Ali again or someone like Ali would be what I would want to do, if I couldn't have my own business, because I think that there was a lot of fun and flexibility. There's a lot of enjoyment of going into that office, which I think with the other places I worked at, it was very much like a job and you didn't have as much autonomy. It was kind of like push this button in these orders and, you get paid at the end of the month. I never really had that with Ali. And I think that, when I was doing my own thing, just having fun creating gaming videos with my friends, there was a lot of freedom there as well. And so I think that's really what I value a lot, is freedom. And I think that's why I like the present day as well, is because I'm largely in control of my calendar. So those would be the two times.
So all that said, where are we today? What does Jamie Whiffen Limited look like? What is Jamie Whiffen himself doing? What is the state of your business these days?
Yeah, so 2 years in, which is an accomplishment that I didn't, crash and burn after a month. I'm still working with, even like my first client, 2 years in, still working with them a call every single 2 weeks. I have had a number of other clients I'm still working with, just growing their YouTube channels. I think that where I really want to take the business going forwards is to rebrand myself slightly away from sort of being a bit of a generalist. I tend to just help everyone and anyone that comes in multiple niches, which I think has been really useful for me to kind of get an understanding of how different audiences consume content on the platform. But what I think I want to do is narrow what I do down a little bit more and focus on the areas that I personally enjoy and have more of an understanding. And that's mostly around idea selection, the titles and the thumbnails. And I think, those three and potentially the hook is where I enjoy spending most of my time with my clients. It's what we spend a lot of time on the calls, because it's where they get the most value from me. It's where they tend to have a lot of problems. I think they are sort of the biggest levers that you can pull on in the content creation process to help you get a lot of views and a lot of people in the door where they can actually see the good content that you're making. So I think, over the next few months, I kind of want to pivot my brand a little bit and become known as that idea, title, thumbnail guy, and sort of reshuffle my products, as it were, from just consulting calls to, maybe like a 16-week package. And we go through and we, you have all of these outcomes at the end of it, and kind of give someone a little bit more of a transformation with working with me, as opposed to let's just have calls. Because I think like that's worked very well for me till now, is like people see the YouTubers that I've worked with, they see the results I've had for other people, and they think, oh, he must know something. And then they come on one of these calls with me, I provide a lot of value, and then they decide, okay, let's sign up and work together. But there's never really been like a North Star, a direction I want to take them in until we get on that call and we sort of uncover it. I think I want to, help people kind of say, yeah, that's a problem that I'm struggling with my idea selection, or I don't really know how to make titles or thumbnails that stick out and get clicks. And so, positioning that problem early on, getting them to come on those calls, providing value to them, and then pitching this new product, I think will be smart for the business and will help with growth. And it'll probably simplify things a little bit for me as well. So I don't feel like I'm speaking to everyone and here, there, and everywhere.
This has been very enlightening. I feel like I know you a bit better now, Jamie. Or at least your backstory, the origin story.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that I get to talk about this stuff because I'm always like, who cares? But it's quite nice to just kind of like have a place now. If someone asks like, how did you get here? I can just link them to it, and you can get the full story.
So I guess stay tuned for the George and Gwilym origin stories coming up soon.
Thanks so much for listening or watching this episode. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. And if you want to listen to either the George or the Gwilym story episodes, you can click them here.